go.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Forever Mighty Show. It's not the post game. I don't know why I keep saying that. Everyone knows there's no hockey right now to be had anywhere, unfortunately. It's dead of summer, Eddie, but we got a ton of news, man. How you doing?
It's going good. I mean, we're at the point now where like we're not even a post game show anymore, so it's like we might as well just say podcast, right? Like we're now just
Forever Mighty podcast.
Yeah, but it's just like because we're so used to the post game show. I mean, how many games did we do last year? So at least like 30, right?
25 or 30? Yeah,
it felt like a lot. Yeah, but whatever. It'll be nice to get back to that eventually.
Yeah, so we haven't gone live in quite some time. We've done a show a few weeks ago, but having a live show is something you and I haven't done in a bit. We tried to get Jason on this one. He's unfortunately unable to be here due to work commitments. So that's unfortunate, but lots of Ducks news, man. Between jerseys being retired, new Ducks jerseys being put out this year.
Fancy new Ducks
people
jerseys.
Signing contracts, people not signing contracts. Bob Murray, flying off the cuff at season ticket holder events. There's just plenty on the plate today. Plus, Nolan Walker and Bo Grew interviews at the end of the show. So plenty of stuff here to talk about, man. You want to go ahead and hit the intro so we can get cracking?
We got it. We got the intro this time. Okay. Let's go.
Trying to get by Benning. Darnell Nurse left it in the corner. Gets up center. Perry scores. Corey Perry.
Ilya able to shake away from Solani. It's given away to Solani. Around in front. Score! Teemu Solani with the steal. Three of the fans want one. Score! Off the floor. On the board. Paul Kariya.
Oh, it's so nice to be back. I mean, we've been kind of just waiting for really the Montour news to break because we kind of knew, Ice Aesthetics teased it, and then the Ducks said they had like a special announcement at the season ticket holders event. I think everybody knew it was the jersey, and then it was just waiting and waiting for Montour to finally sign. And of course, it comes down to the 24th, which was his arbitration date, and we can now finally get a show out and get talking about all this news.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you could talk about the minor deals. The Ducks signed some AHL guys, and then you're kind of like stuck just wondering and just questioning what the Montour deal is going to be, or if there is a new jersey. And it's like, what the hell is the point of doing a show that way? We just kind of needed to wait for stuff to fall into place. But something we've been wanting to talk about for a long time, because it centers around you coming to California, man.
Yeah.
Is Paul Kariya and Scott Niedermayer. It was announced just a few weeks ago that the Ducks are going to be retiring their jerseys coming up here. How pumped are you, man, to see the number 9 go to the rafters, and you get to come to California and go to that game?
Well, I mean, listen, I'm pumped just for him in general. I mean, he's my favorite player of all time. One of the reasons I became a Ducks fan in the first place. So for him to just be finally getting his number retired is great. It's great for Scotty as well. But yeah, I mean, the fact that it worked out, that's the game we're going to. Crazy circumstance, really, because we kind of just decided to go to this game against Buffalo on the 21st, and we're going to do a watch party for the Vegas game beforehand. And then the Ducks a week later say, you know what, we'll make that game a little bit more exciting. We'll retire Paul Kariya's jersey on that night. How about that?
Yeah, man. And then my good buddy Elliot pulls through and has gladly taken us to the game, which is amazing. So we get killer seats for that. So shout out to him. And then, dude, it's going to be a hell of a time. I'm so pumped. I mean, you said Paul was your favorite player. He was mine too growing up. I mean, I'm such a nerd that I would record games. I know I've said it on this show or a Puck Guys before, but I would have a cassette player like hooked up on my AM radio when I didn't have a TV when I was a kid. I was born in '83, not 33 or whatever. I'm only 34 years old. But yeah, man, when I was younger, I didn't have a TV in my room with cable, so I would like record his goals and stuff and play them back during the off season. I was a freak. I was an idiot. But yeah, man, I'm so pumped to be able to go to that game and have his number raised. I mean, they teased it last season, and when they were celebrating Paul and Teemu going to the Hall, and everyone was, and then Henry Samueli was like, well, I mean, we love to have you up there, Paul, and everyone kind of like got all excited, and it's like, oh, okay, we're not doing anything.
Yeah,
Paul wasn't ready. He had this thing where he just felt like he didn't earn it.
He had to like backtrack it too after that comment. He's like, "Oh, we don't know, maybe," because everybody was getting like real pumped up when he said that, and I think he didn't kind of expect that reaction, and then he kind of had to wind it back a bit.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's because they didn't discuss it with him. It looked really uncomfortable for Paul Kariya. Yeah. It's because he's not an extroverted guy. He's very much to himself, introverted. If anyone knows anything about him, he's very quiet. He's stayed out of hockey. He hides away on the coast of California and just surfs. Like he just doesn't play hockey, doesn't suit up. I mean, as far as I know, the last time he suited up prior to the Hall of Fame game was his last game with the Blues. Yeah. So that's crazy, and it's awesome to have him back a part of it, man. I think he's very deserving of it, and I think that's kind of where you want to get into here. The meat of this conversation is Paul was the superstar, the first superstar for the Ducks. He played for the Ducks for almost a decade. And you could tell he was important to the team because when he left, people hated him here, man. It was like a split. People were so pissed about it, so mad at him personally, and you could that just tells you right there. It just rips apart people. But to me, that just goes to show how valuable he was to the franchise. I think it's about time he gets put up there.
Yeah, and I mean, you could have made an argument beforehand if there wasn't, if Paul was wanting it, that he could have gone in before Timo did. Because of when he retired and when his career ended, there was a period of time where Timo was still playing, and you could have done that induction for Paul, but of course it wasn't something he wanted at that time, and there was kind of a rocky relationship with the Ducks, which really has only been mended over the last couple of seasons. It started with that surprise appearance in the playoffs where he was painting the X across the 9, and that was like the first time we'd seen him in forever, and it was just kind of a random thing for him to show up there. And then of course, I'm sure at that point, some discussion about the Hall of Fame, they were talking about. Obviously they didn't know at that time, and then the Hall of Fame stuff comes in, and now we've got all this, but he's kind of just worked his way back into the organization over the last about year and a half. So it's great to see him get in, but of course now he's going in with Scotty, and I think that's where the questions start kind of coming up is does Scotty Niedermayer deserve to be going in with him? I'm in the group that kind of believes he does, but what do you think? Does he deserve to get his number up there like this early or right now?
Scotty? Yeah. He's very much one of the greatest defensemen, right? Especially of his generation. And he did play a pivotal role for the Ducks. He was a captain. I mean, that all adds up to it. I guess you want to go to the longevity of his tenure here in Anaheim. It wasn't all that long, but the impact, there's no question. If they start retiring like Chris Pronger's number, it'd be like, nah, I don't see it. But I'm okay with Scotty. I felt like it didn't need to be done though this year. I felt like it could have waited. It should have been Paul's year, but I'm not upset about it. I'm not going to complain about it. I get where people are like, well, why is Scotty going in along with Paul? Paul had to wait forever. It was like, well, there's circumstances behind that. Paul didn't really want to. Yeah. So, and it's from Scotty's perspective. I mean, he did enough for the team in my eyes. I mean, honestly, man, I'm out of words. He was one of the main reasons why we won the cup. Yeah,
and I think that it's them kind of following that blending of eras theme. They did that with the jersey. The fact that they still have some of the orange and the silver on the jersey with the logo and with the black background. You've got one guy coming in and getting his jersey retired from one era in Paul, and then you've got the other era in Scotty, because he came in, I believe he came in after they were the Mighty Ducks, or maybe the season before. I think I remember him wearing the old Mighty Ducks third jersey, the purple one, the Coho one. But either way, I mean, it's the blending of eras. So I think that's why they did it. I agree maybe it should have been Paul's year, and there's a lot of things in my mind. I agree with you that Scotty deserved to go in because of the contributions he made to this team. He played 5 of his 18 seasons with Anaheim. For me, it's tough when you've got a guy who's already had his jersey retired by another team, and that's where it kind of gets a little bit murky for me. Obviously, his jersey's been retired by the New Jersey Devils, and now he's also going to have one retired with the Anaheim Ducks. And I get it. I mean, if you make an impact with 2 teams across your career, it makes sense. It just gets a little bit iffy for me at that point. Yeah,
I mean, I see what you're saying, but I mean, it's not much we could do at this point. You know what I mean?
Well,
I don't know what to say, man, because Scotty was such a huge part of that team. I'm not upset about it, but I see where you're going with it. It's kind of like he already had it done in New Jersey.
Yeah.
And now it's going to be retired in Anaheim. And he kind of saw it coming too, just because no one else is wearing 27, right? I mean, I don't know anyone else who's worn 27 since Scotty. I mean, that's someone wants to pipe in on our chat here and school me. But I mean, besides Paul, it was Bobby Ryan wore 9. I mean, so that's about it. So you kind of could feel those things were coming around. But I'm okay with it. I mean, if I were to critique any of it, it would just be because I wish it was just Paul's year, and that was it. You know, I think he deserved his own time. But it's great to have it done either way, man. It's nice to see him be able to come back and enjoy being around the sport again. You know, he had those high-profile interviews prior to him going to the Hall of Fame, and you got to look in on his life post-career and how traumatic those injuries were for him, where he doesn't remember scoring that goal in game 6, and doesn't remember anything on game 7 or anything after that for, like he said, like a week, if I'm not mistaken. It was a long time, or he just has no memory. So the price he paid, you know, is just interesting to see all those things about his life. And then you see Wayne, maybe he was a little bitter about hockey, think of the way the sport was being played at that time. But it's good to see him come back into the sport, especially coming back as a Duck and getting his number retired. And we get to be there, man. You get to come to California.
Yeah, that's a little bit of icing on the cake. I think the question that a lot of fans have after that is who's next? And for me, there's really only one name, and it's still kind of up in the air if he really deserves it or not, and that's Jiggy and J.S. Shigeru. Does he deserve to have his number retired next? I'm sure it would be later down the road. There's no way they do back-to-back seasons or anything like that, especially since they're retiring 2 numbers this year. But you would have to think if they do anybody before Getzlaf and before Perry, it would have to be Jiggy, right?
That's a tough one, man. Jean-Sebastien Giguère had some good seasons in Anaheim and was a part of that cup run, and it's very hard, I feel, to separate emotion as a fan when you remember those times when you were watching those games and you were cheering the Ducks on, and it pulls on those memories from you being all excited about the team and how much you love Jiggy and how much of a great person he was in the community and the fans and all that, and that kind of gives you bias. I feel like I don't think he was a superstar. I don't think he has that clout about him in order to be retired by Anaheim. Not to say I don't like him, not to say they won't do it, but I mean, if they're just going to start retiring anybody above average play, then you kind of open the door there. But I know that it's more than that with him. It's because of what he was to the team. But I kind of hold it in high regard to have your number retired, don't you?
I think so.
I don't know if he deserves to be there.
Yeah, I think
just don't.
so.
I mean, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I would think the only way he kind of gets it is if they were like searching for a guy before Getzlaf and Perry, because that's going to be a while down the road before Getzlaf and Perry get their numbers up there. And I believe at this point, and look at probably where they're going to finish in all-time points for the team if they don't get traded, of course. You would assume they'd probably be 1, 2, or close to it. So I would think he'd probably be the only name that you could really consider, because you're not going to consider a guy like Chris Pronger as much as he did for this organization when he was here. He wasn't here long enough, and I don't really think there's anybody else that you can throw into that conversation at this point. So if they were searching for a guy, sure, Jiggy probably has some things going for him. Of course, he won the Cup, and he had some good playoff runs, but I think as a whole, I don't think he made a big enough impact to get his name or his number retired. I think you need to do a little bit more. But if they were searching for a guy, he's definitely on top of that list. I mean, it would go Timu, Paul, Niedermayer, probably then Jiggy after that, and then some other guys if you wanted to stretch it out a bit. But Drew makes a good point in our chat. He said he's not sure on Jiggy, but he's more of a guy who would make like a Ring of Honor type of thing than to go up in the rafters. And I kind of tend to agree with that a bit.
Yeah, no, man, I agree with him too. Good but not great is kind of where I put him. So, yeah, you got to be outstanding to me in order to have that done. Just like I kind of disappointed the way the NHL's throwing around putting people in the Hall of Fame. I always throw it back because I like to tease my Kings buddies. Rogie Vachon's been retired for how many decades, and he just gets into the freaking Hall a couple of years ago. It's like, if you weren't good enough, like within 5 years of being retired, do you really think it's okay you come in decades later? So, yeah, the way they throw that Hall of Fame thing around is so odd to me. And I just don't want that to be the same thing for teams. But, hey, man, I get it. Dude, I love Jiggy when he was here. No slight against him. But he's good but not great. So that's where I stand on Giguère.
I think a lot of people loved him. But, I mean, in the end of the day is if you haven't done enough to get your number retired, you don't go up there just because people love you. I mean, you have to do enough to impact this team You know, it's a sacred thing, in my opinion. Having your number retired